What's up, guys? BJ the Brave here, bringing you another deck guide for Shadowverse Worlds Beyond. And guys, we are into set 2. Infinity Evolved has arrived, and it's only natural that my first deck guide, I think, is around the Haven Ward build. Now, this is pretty much a new archetype. I did do a video called Word Wall. Definitely go check that out. There's some good tips in there that will relate to this one. But obviously, we got some big upgrades and some brilliant cards for Ward in this expansion. So what we're going to do in this video, I'm going to talk you through the deck, and then we're going to jump into some games against a range of different classes so you can kind of see how it works in practice. Now, overall, I would say that this deck is it's quite a fun deck. I quite enjoy it, especially if you enjoy building like really good kind of boards of actual followers, then this is a great deck. Let's jump in and have a look. Okay, so first of all, we are running what we're trying to do, with this deck. What we're trying to do is we are trying to get the new card, Wilbert, into play, and we're trying to evolve and get his crest. His crest then lasts for the rest of the game, and it says that when an allied follower with ward enters the field, you give it +1 attack and +2 defense. Now, that's on every ward for the rest of the game, which is really, really powerful. And that includes wards that are pulled and summoned from other cards, not just ones that you play on the board. So, we obviously want Wilbert in our opening hand. This is a card that you almost hard mulligan for. The other cards that I'll tend to keep in the mulligan are the Serene Sanctuary and because this helps us draw through to our options, and then Leah Bellringer as well, which is a 2-drop. It also has ward, right? So it fits lovely into this theme. And when it does die, if you play it, for example, on turn 2, it dies and it draws you a card. So it actually gets you closer to your combos. Now, in addition to Wilbert, we also run 3 copies of Aether, because Aether is a really good card at pulling usually 3 often ward units from our deck, and then they all get the bonus that we just described from Wilbert. Now, you can super evolve this, but you need to understand the matchup. For example, if you're playing like Ramp Dragon or something that can kind of just get rid of your board, you're probably better off not super evolving. Maybe like a William from Spell Boost, for example, knowing that that can kind of get outrageous as well. So depending on the matchup, I'll kind of decide whether I'm going to use the super evolve with this or not. And that, you know, if you're playing against Forest, for example, you absolutely want to super evolve this, because the massive wall of ward units are just too much for combo roach builds to really get through. So really understanding the matchup is pretty critical here. But let's just look through the rest of the deck in terms of how do we get through to that combo. So I've already described the mulligan. We do have Divine Guards. I think this is a good card, but you have to remember that this card is actually better slightly later in the game. It's not really like an early game removal. So it's a little bit clunky to play, but it's good value, I think, for a 1 cost. You could drop a single copy of Divine Guard, and you could put a second Darkhaven Grace. Now, I only run a single Darkhaven Grace, but this is a really important card. It can keep you healing, it can keep you in the game, it can buff your ward units, and importantly, at the end of the game, we do run a single Griffin, so it's a nice guaranteed trigger for the Griffin, because this is a card that stays on the board. I don't run any more than 1 copy because I hate having a second copy that I can't play, and this is a deck where you cannot play a second copy of Grace. There just isn't space on the board, so I only run 1 copy. If you really wanted consistency of drawing it, though, you could drop a single Divine Guard and put a second Grace in there. Now, in terms of my 2-drops, I run Sarissa. You can play this out on 2 for tempo to keep you in the game and compete with aggro. It's a 2/2, it's fine. But the bonus of it is with all these wards, obviously, if it hides behind things like even as early as playing Charetta turn 2 and then playing Sarissa on turn 3, it can start to grow and get pretty outrageous. That can help you trade early games, but in the late game, it can actually act as a potential win con as well. If you evolve this follower, it even gets barrier, and that becomes really scary for your opponent. They have to put some pretty big resources into killing a simple 2-drop, right? Now, we do have in the 3-drop slot, I've gone for 3 Grimnirs. I think this card is probably the best 3-drop overall, just because the crest is so good. Every time you super evolve, you get to deal 2 damage to enemy followers, and sometimes that is really important. Sometimes it's not. Like, sometimes you've got to super evolve. on a turn to deal with a certain board state, and you don't get any extra value really from the two. But it can be the difference, and we are getting more crests now with this expansion, and I think it's really interesting. It's adding a new dynamic to the game. It's making you plan ahead and think about different strategies. So I really like Grimnir. Also really love that like your opponent plays a 2-drop, usually like a 2/2, and then you play this as a 3-drop, and that 2/3 with ward just means they can't push face damage, and that 3 health just trades really well. It trades down into 2-drops really, really nicely. The other 3-drop that I am running, though, is the Cleric of Crushing. I actually do think that this is a really, it's a decent card. It's really a toss-up between this and the Barrier Shield Maiden, which I also really like. I think the Cleric of Crushing, it's a bit... It loses out to Swordcraft often because they can Valse it on 3 and it clears, and that feels really, really bad. But then again, it's better against things like Forest. So it just depends what you want to tech against, really. The other thing is we do run Divine Guards. And because I've got the 3 guards, that's the reason why I picked it, because it's obviously got a higher health, whereas the Shield Maiden only has 1 defense, right? Not health, defense. And therefore, it has anti-synergy with Divine Guards. So if you weren't going to play Divine Guards, then maybe I'd lean towards a Divine Shield Maiden. But if you're playing the guards, then I think you need to keep the Cleric of Crushings. Now, in the 4-drop slot, I think the neutral ward is pretty good. I have been testing that, and it worked out quite well. But I also think that Divine Thunder is really nice to have. And you might think, well, do we really need that with all the removal that we've got in this deck? And I think the answer is yes. One thing I really love about Divine Thunder is that first of all, it's cheap removal, but also what it does is the 1-drop, the deal 1 damage to all enemy followers is really important. Not only does that obviously do very well against Forest and sometimes against certain sword boards, but it's also really good against the new legendary in Runecraft that puts out the 2 golems with barrier, right? Or if you're looking at Amelia in Swordcraft, where she has those big super evo turns where she barriers the whole board, they can be a real nightmare for you to deal with. And Divine Thunder's just so good at like killing the big threat and just removing all the barriers. So I quite like having one of as a tech choice. But if you wanted to run the, I was going to call it the Yeti. It's not the Yeti, is it? Whatever the 4-drop is that's a ward, that's a neutral, you could run that there. Now, we also have pretty standard stuff in terms of the Celethas. I do think that this card is really key to dealing with aggro, so you want to mulligan for this if you're playing against like Swordcraft, for example, and maybe Forestcraft. A good extra mulligan keep for sure. Wilbert, I already said, I'm pretty much looking for this always in my opening hand. It's such a critical card to making this deck work that you really want to mulligan fairly hard for it. The Unholy Vessel is nice as an alternative, and if we do lose the board and we need to just get rid, or if our opponent's playing passive, we can actually just drop an Unholy and say, now what do you want to do? Do you want to develop the board? And that also sets up a potential Griffin play where we can kind of super evo the Griffin and then go off with Vessel, destroys the board. Griffin survives because it's super evoed, and it's now triggered with Storm, and it can go to face. Now, we've already talked about the Aether, which is a superb card, and drawing all of our 3-drops, and sometimes a cheeky Sarissa behind a load of wards, which is an added problem. Like, it's a really big problem if they haven't got like something that can just deal with the whole board, like a Twilight Dragon or something. So knowing the matchup is really key, I think, to playing Aether, and also thinking like, what is your follow-up? So, for example, against Ramp Dragon, you know, they might Twilight Dragon your board, so what you might play Aether, not Super Evo. They play the Ramp Dragon, clear the board, but you're sitting with Odin in your hand. You now Odin his dragon and then go face, right? So I do really like the Odins in this deck. It doesn't need triggers like Griffin does, so I run 2 of those and only a single Griffin. And being able to storm face and deal with the board at the same time is really powerful. It's one of my favorite cards in the set, and I also love the artwork. Shout out to the artist on that one. And last but not least, what is probably my favorite Havencraft card is Xian. I really love this card. It's a 5-star card in my opinion. It does everything, and it doesn't even cost you an evolve. Obviously, you can super evolve. And on top of everything, this card is a ward. So in this particular deck, this card is bonkers. It's a 5.5 out of 5. It's just so incredible. The stats are going to be bonkers. And obviously, if they don't deal with an Aether board, you're going to have all these wards on board, and then you just play Xian, and it's just GG. So it's a really fun deck. I really enjoy this deck, and I've already talked about the mulligan. So let's jump into some games now and see how it works in practice. If you like this, by the way, don't forget to hit that thumbs up down below and subscribe to the channel. All right, on to the games. Alrighty, so first up we've got Runecraft. So I keep the early game units here because if it's like spell boost, I'm thinking I can really like push some early damage, which is great because then in the late game, just like one Xian or one even Odin or something like that might be able to sort of finish the game. But we've quickly find out that we are not playing a pure spell boost here. We're playing Earthright, and Earthright actually has pretty good early game board, so it's going to be a little bit of a battle for the early game. So he drops the owl, and he's just building up already. He's Earth Sigil. That's the word. Now we kind of went face there rather than trading because as you just saw, as he destroyed the ward, Sarissa's going to grow and get bigger. So it traded nicely into his 4/4, whereas otherwise that would have been still alive, right? So yeah, it's just pretty much in this early game we're just kind of like trading back and forth. I think the biggest decision really in this so far was that we did use the play point because I thought if it was spell boost we could really play for some early damage, and that meant that we can't Wilbert here. I often like to save the coin, if you like, so that we can kind of get the extra play point and get Wilbert out earlier. So that was really just a call really on what we thought we were playing against. Didn't work out. Anyway, we've kept up pretty decently. Obviously, Selefa would be a good way of answering that board, but actually I think Wilbert's just as good, so we're going to clear here and hope he hasn't got any kind of banish option. But he has got the Odin, so that's going to hurt us because he's going to be able to now push quite a bit of damage and get us down to 5 health. So, this is an example where with Wardcraft, you can be really pushing it quite fine, to be honest. We are going to Super Evo. This is the one thing about when they do the banish thing into Wilbert. At least you've set Aether up the next turn, right? Because the crest is down. And a really nice use there of the Grimnir's crest as well. You saw the extra 2 damage. Helping us to clear out the board there. So he goes ahead and he evolves Juno. Okay, so not enough, but he does get one of these golems out, which is obviously providing him with some ward. Now, we're going to actually Super Evo the Selefa here because this just deals with this board really well. Often our opponents don't think we're going to Super Evo Selefa as well. They often don't play around that. Like, they always think about the Evo version, but they don't think about us spending a Super Evo. But sometimes it's correct to do that, right? Now, down comes Norman. This card is such a good card, guys. And he's obviously got the double barriers down here. It's just such a threatening board, right? And Xian doesn't really do much to that type of board either, which is, it's very rare that you say that, like that Xian can't deal with a wide board. But something that's got 8 health and then 2-3 costs that have barriers, it's really problematic. So we go this way instead, and look at that. We've gone from being down to 5 health and massively behind him. We've actually really caught up in this game. He's got 1 Super Evo point left. We've spent ours. But there's really... Okay, so he's going to eat Super Evo Remy and Rami. Does clear the board. Nice. And puts out 2 more barrier golems, and this is where the Unholy Vessel really comes in. I'm going to use the extra play point as well, just to get the Lear down. Look at this as well. Lear in the late game becomes a 1/4, right? So it can attack. It's one of the main reasons why it's in this deck. It's not just the draw, it's that it actually becomes a useful trading card. You've just got to be careful in some matchups in early games that it can kind of like get steamrolled. Sometimes I'm mulligan it away in like Swordcraft, for example. And finally, we get the Xian for the nice win. We had a few different ways we could end that game there. GG. All right, so we got some Havencraft. Mirror match. So we're looking very hard for our Wilbert and our Aether in this match, right? I would pretty much hard mulligan for it in this match, to be honest. The only thing I'd maybe keep is the the 1-drop cemetery just to draw. Maybe Leah. But I'd be pretty much otherwise hard mulligan for Wilbert. So this Haven, if it is Ward, it is also running some a few amulets as well, which you're going to see. Like, there's quite a lot of versions of this. I've tried some quite nice hybrid versions as well. I still think this is a Ward, though, the fact that it's playing this card, for example, which is not a bad card to run with this. So we actually just go ahead and drop Selefa, but not spend the Evo there. And he does the kind of same in kind. So we're going to play Wilbert, finally get the Evo off. And this type of matchup as well, it's quite nice that we're going first, right? Because it's quite a proactive deck, and we're able to we're able to kind of build the board. The other thing though in this match that you've got to be mindful of is like things like Xian's very, very good, as is Odin, right? And because we're able to get down first, even though he's Wilbert, we can Odin his Wilbert, and he didn't do that to ours because he wanted to get his Wilbert down. So we can actually Odin that and just essentially push now with an Evo to kind of like really push the damage. And in the mirror match, like, this is the kind of turn that just kind of seems to really determine the game, right? Because now he's sort of like on the back foot, and he knows that like one storm and we've kind of won. So it's, yeah. So I thought it was quite worth showing just the kind of order in there of how you want to kind of counter key cards. All right, guys. Next up, we got Swordcraft. So we are looking for early game units that can fight, and that's why we just kept the cleric there. Leah's no good in this match as an early game card. You just lose the game before you get to any of your good stuff. This is still a good turn 1 play, though. Now, we actually just choose to hit a timer, right? Because we want to dig for more early game cards. Also, don't really want to use the coin because it's probably going to be pivotal to get Selefa out, right? So we drop the 3-drop now, hoping that this can sustain. But this is where, if he's got it, he hasn't actually got it. But that's where Valse can really be a bit of a blowout. If you had Valse there on turn 3... I mean, that's usually where I lose games to Sword. It's if they have that Valse on turn 3, it's really massive in this matchup. But as he didn't, our Ward was able to kind of stave off the damage, and then we can use the coin to get Selefa out. And this early game is kind of like exactly what you're hoping for against Sword. It can go the other way, like I said, if they have the Valse, and then they basically can push and go into Zakona next turn, and it's a real problem for us. But yeah, Selefa is definitely one you would mulligan for in this matchup. And then early game units, that's really what you're looking for. Now, obviously, we've been really aggressive on the Evos here. But it's important, right? We just need to get through. And the fact we're on 20 health at 6 is like absolutely massive against Sword. And I will spend the Super Evo here. Obviously, we are not valuing our... it's a bit of a weird one, really. It's a bit of a weird one with Wilbert, right? Because you sort of get the value up front. It's a bit of a different way of using Evos. And it's not a great way to use a Super Evo, to be honest. But we had to do it. We had to do it. We have to trigger the crest. And we needed the Evos for the AoEs. So it's a bit of a strange game in that sense, but you've got to do what you got to do sometimes. So do we Super Evo? Yes, we do. And the reason is we're going to trigger... we're going to extra player point and use Divine Guard. Yeah. I mean, that was pretty... Like, we took the 50-50 there. We got a bit lucky, to be honest. Now, he has got the Amalia, and he's got the Super Evo, and we're completely out of Evos, right? And this is where, when you're looking at how do you build the Ward Haven decks, this is where I look at cards that can do things like... I like the 5-drop that banishes a card. I've tried that. That's done okay. But things like... This is where, like, you know, things like Griffin, things like Unholy, things that can do something to the board. We actually chose to use this slightly defensively, which is not normally how I use the Griffin, but the reason was I wanted to get wanted to tease out more value with the Unholy. And look at this. This is exactly what we've done. We knew we had life as a resource, and we knew he'd want to push having Amalia on the board and me leaving it. So we actually go and get more value from the Unholy player. So he kind of fell into the trap there a little bit. So sadly for us, he has actually got the second Amalia. So we're seeing a typical mid-range sword like value, wave after wave of value here. But this time we have got Xian, and because he didn't Super Evo as well, obviously we can kill Amalia herself. Okay, so let's lock down the board. He has got his other Super Evo though, so he can deal with Xian. Meanwhile, Sarissa's just getting big, right? Remember what we said about this 2-drop. Now, Odin here, just again, so flexible, this card in the late game. Like, just need to deal with this big unit, please. Put another ward down just to make Sarissa even bigger. I actually even decide to take the trade there, right? Because he's out of Evos and Super Evos, I just want to kind of like force out any answers that he might have. And he's actually fallen back on defensive answers now. You know, he's out of Levo, Jiva, whatever it's called, the 7-drop. But he's just running out his vanguards. Obviously getting to attack because he's still got the commander on board. The Luminous Lance Trooper even. That was quite a nice combo. But this is where Ward's so good. We get into these types of grinds and all of a sudden we know we've got value on every Ward that we play is better than his basic cards because we invested and we got the crest outright. So yeah, really good game there against Swordcraft. All right, guys, last game we are up against Dragoncraft. Now, Dragoncraft ramp is one I wanted to try and get in this guide because it is actually quite a tough matchup for us, and we have to think about things a little bit differently. So we obviously still want to get our Wilbert down and everything, but we are less. We've got to like rely a bit less on Aether in this match. So he goes ahead and he just removes our early game, right? So we struggle to put any pressure on there. We've got the Grimnir, which is always great on 3 because you are setting up for late game the crest. Now, luckily for us, he didn't have his ramp on 3, which is obviously a massive problem for us when he does. Now, he does find it on 4, so he's kind of playing a turn behind. So, you know, to be fair, opponent's a bit lucky. He obviously only just drew it. So we kind of got off 1 turn lighter than we should, and we press in as much damage as we can. But he's already, look at this, with the play point, he's already able to play a 7-drop, right? So this is the thing with ramp, isn't it? You're straight in, and he gets the heal, and he doesn't even need to use. He could have used an Evo, to be honest, but he's obviously, because of the heal, he's obviously feeling pretty safe against just a single 5 damage, and Ward not having like a ton of burst. Now we do play our Wilbert. But check this out, guys. Phylene coming down. Right, dragons. And you're thinking, how does he deal with this board? Well, you know how he deals with this board. He Evos, he plays the White Frost Whisper. Kaboom, takes the AoE option. And all of a sudden, he's taken back over the board. Now, we're in a bit of a conundrum here because obviously we want to play Aether. I don't really want a Super Evo normally because we know that against ramp we lose badly to Twilight, but we kind of need to get rid of Phylene. And so we kind of go ahead, but we're just hoping he hasn't got the Twilight, right? Like, oh, there it is. He's got the extra play point. Because he ramps, he's able to play Twilight now. And the good news for us is because of the health discrepancy, and we've also got Odin, right? So we know he had the counterplay, but we had the counter to the counterplay too. And what we actually do is we just go ahead and use the ward to make Odin bigger. It's another reason why I really love this, the Darkhaven Grace. It's one of my favorite cards. And then your Evo, and he's suddenly doing 7 damage. We couldn't have lethal there, so I saved the Super Evo. I just wanted to really put him down. I could have not used the Evo, but I just didn't want any kind of healing shenanigans going on. Look, he's healed a little bit. I just wanted to make sure it was in range, really. But we've got the Griffin and we've got Odin, so there's kind of multiple ways we can kind of win here. And we obviously just go with, we decide to just go with Odin. And we got the Super Evo and this. So yeah, just showing you, like, even against Ramp Dragon, where I do think it's a harder matchup, you just play, your play pattern just changes a little bit and you can still do it. So that's the deck guide. Here's the QR code if you want to copy it. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this one, check this one out next. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more Shadowverse Worlds Beyond content coming to you soon.